From this point forward, this place is mine. And frankly, what this business needs is real leadership, not emotional women pretending to be in charge." Mason's voice sliced through the morning meeting like a knife, his chest puffed with a sense of new authority. I sat in silence, watching my brother deliver his first speech as the new owner of Mikkei's Southern Kitchen. It's the very restaurant I had devoted the last 12 years of my life to. I'm Sabrina Mikkei. I'm 36, and up until that moment I thought, understood what betrayal felt like. I didn't. The sting of his words wasn't only about gender, it was about erasing everything I'd worked so hard to build. Every night I stayed late perfecting recipes. Every customer relationship I cultivated. Every crisis I handled while Mason schmoozed investors and took credit for my work, it was all being dismissed. I glanced around the table at the staff I'd stood beside for years. Jennifer, our lead server, avoided eye contact, staring down at her hands. Carlos, our line cook, shifted in discomfort. Even Bethany from pastries looked like she wished she could disappear. They all knew who actually kept the restaurant running, who created the dishes that brought people back, who kept the books balanced and suppliers on time. "Any questions?" Mason asked, a smug grin curling at the corners of his mouth. Silence was heavy and awkward. Everyone was waiting to see how I'd respond, expecting me to speak up, to stand my ground. Instead, I rose slowly, the sound of my chair scraping across the floor echoing in the still room. "Congrats on your promotion," I said, voice calm and even. There was no venom, no sarcasm, just a crisp professionalism. Mason's smile faltered, clearly thrown off by my restraint. I turned and walked toward the door, my footsteps loud. In the quiet, behind me, he cleared his throat, trying to move forward. "Well then, let's go over the changes we'll be making right away." But I was already gone, pushing through the kitchen doors for the final time. The once comforting scent of cornbread and collard greens now felt like the fading echo of a home I no longer recognized. I grabbed my purse from the office, my old office, and exited through the back door without glancing back. The Charleston morning was thick with warmth and humidity. Even at 9 a.m., I sat in my car for a moment, gripping the wheel. Mason believed he'd won today, that he'd finally claimed what was his as the eldest son. What he didn't realize was that he'd just made the worst mistake of his life. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a contact I'd been putting off calling. "Hello, Mr. Patterson. It's Sabrina Mikkei. I'm ready to sign that lease." Growing up a Mikkei meant understanding where you stood. My father, Thomas, built the restaurant from the ground up in 1987. My mother, Patricia, spent 30 years managing the front with warmth and poise that customers remembered. Mason, the only son, and 3 years my senior, was always seen as the heir. Even as kids, he got the prime cut, while I cleared the plates. When we began working at the restaurant as teens, Mason was introduced to customers as the future owner. I was just Thomas's daughter helping out. Helping out turned into my life's purpose, while Mason bounced between jobs that never lasted. I returned home after college and committed myself fully to the restaurant, though never officially in charge. Every major problem landed on my plate. I handled surprise inspections, overdue bills, and complaints. Over 5 years, I learned the business inside out. I modernized inventory systems, improved vendor contracts, and created 3 of our best-selling dishes, including the bourbon peach cobbler food bloggers raved about. While I worked 60-hour weeks, Mason made appearances on busy nights, mingled like a politician, and left with business cards and investors' numbers. My parents adored his charisma, convinced he'd elevate the restaurant's image. "Sabrina's the details," Mom would say, but Mason has vision. Funny thing was, my details boosted revenue by 30% in 3 years. My strategic decisions kept us afloat while others closed. But his charm still made him the natural successor. When Dad announced his retirement, I naively believed my efforts would finally be acknowledged. Instead, he called a family meeting to declare Mason would take over. I watched Mason accept the decision like he'd earned it, not once mentioning how often he'd bailed. "You'll be a strong support for him," Dad told me. "Every leader needs a solid right hand, a right hand." After 12 years as the backbone of this place, I was now just the support act. I smiled, nodded, and began making calls that very night. If they wanted him to lead, let him do it alone. The morning of Mason's official takeover. I arrived 2 hours early like always. There was work to do. Orders to confirm, books to balance. I was deep into invoices when Jennifer showed up. "Big day, huh?" she asked, trying to sound cheerful. I didn't look up. Just another day. But we both knew it wasn't. Bethany arrived shortly after, her usual energy dimmed by uncertainty. "Is Mr. Mason here yet?" she asked while tying her apron. "Staff meeting at 9, I said. I almost warned them all but held back. They needed their jobs and my warnings wouldn't help. Right at 9, Mason walked in, dressed. In business, casuals trying to look the part. Behind him were our proud parents. "Everyone to the dining room," he announced with authority. We gathered around the big round table. Dad gave a short speech and handed Mason the keys with a flourish. Mom got misty-eyed. Mason then launched into his vision, ending with that dig about emotional women and real leadership. That's when I knew I couldn't stay. Couldn't stand by as my contributions were erased. So I stood, wished him well, and walked away. With my dignity intact, but I wasn't leaving with nothing. I was heading towards something real. The drive to Patterson Properties took 15 minutes, but felt like a shift into a new chapter. Weeks ago, I'd toured a small storefront on King Street, just a daydream back then. Exposed brick, tall windows, open space seat was imperfect, but it had potential. "Still interested?" Patterson asked when I called. "More than ever," I said. "Can you come in an hour? Another party's looking at it." I'd been preparing for this, quietly collecting recipes, supplier info, and photos. The moment Dad chose Mason, I started mentally planning my exit. The space was rough, but functional. "How fast can you open?" Patterson asked. "I need to launch in 2 months," I replied. Doing quick math on savings and timelines. "Ambitious," he said, "but doable." I reviewed lease terms and mapped out a renovation plan. Rent was steep, but manageable if I did it all myself at first. Chef manager, marketer. Driving home, I felt both terrified and exhilarated. I was betting it all that customers cared. More about flavor and integrity than a family name. I'd made the biggest decision of my life.